Hello roasters, Roaster Cat here, back at Black and White Coffee Roasters, and we're talking about roastery equipment. When most people think about coffee equipment, they think roasters, grinders, espresso machines, brewers, maybe even a color sorter like the Pearl Mini that I featured in an earlier video. But storage and handling, that is just as important, if not more so, for roastery efficiency and roaster wellness. If you're a production roaster, you know the slog of scooping batch after batch after batch, and it can be really hard on your body, especially as a roastery's volume grows. So today we're talking about a new piece of roastery equipment, the SOVDA Precision Silo. It's an 8-compartment silo system that can hold up to 80 bags of green coffee. In this video, we'll take a look at the very first precision silo ever installed in a roastery, and it happens to be here at Black and White. It was installed as a development partnership, which means there's been some troubleshooting and tweaking to get it from a working model to a production quality machine, so there have been some hiccups along the way, but even still, this silo had a big impact on roastery operations here. In this video, we'll dive deep into how it works, from loading, dispensing, even pre-roast blending, and we'll talk about the benefits of how it's affected the workflow here at Black and White. First of all, let's load this thing. Each compartment can hold up to 10 bags of green coffee, and it's wild how quickly it loads. Basically, they'll bring a pallet right in front of this hopper right here and start emptying bag by bag of green coffee into this hopper. Then a vacuum system transports it up this tube and dispenses it into the selected chamber. There's an auger on the top that kind of moves around from chamber to chamber. Emptying an entire pallet all at once might seem like a lot of work, but remember, this is all coffee that otherwise would have to be scooped manually at a later time. But now, because it's in the silo, it will be dispensed automatically. So basically, you're doing the work now by loading the silo to save work later on. It takes about 20 minutes to load an entire pallet of coffee into the silo. That's over 1,500 pounds of coffee moved in just 20 minutes. Loading the silo will usually happen towards the end of the day during cleaning and other warehouse maintenance tasks, so it doesn't get in the way of actual roasting workflow. Let's see it in action.
The weight of the limu, I'm hoping total, and then we're good to go.
Sweet. Was it totally empty?
No, I had 121, so I had to add.
And then you added
to 60 kilogram bags, so I did 132 times 11, which was 11 bags, and then added that to the 121 that was already.
Nice. Well, and that took like 19 minutes. That took just under 20 minutes, I just calculated.
Now let's take a look at how it works to dispense coffee during the roast day. There's a main screen and you can see the 8 chambers with the coffee name and the weight in the chamber. This volume isn't actively being weighed, but it's a calculation based on what you load minus what you've already dispensed. On the right side, you can see the hopper weight, which is the hopper down below, and it does have an active scale, and here you see the target weight. So when you go to dispense a coffee, you select the coffee chamber you want to dispense from, and you see it get a little green shadow underneath, so you know it's selected. You enter the weight you want to dispense, and then you click Start. a door at the bottom of the silo chamber will open and start dispensing coffee into the hopper. It opens wide at first and then closes as the weight gets closer to the target weight so it doesn't over dispense. Then a vacuum system kicks on and brings the coffee from the lower hopper through this tube to this hopper right here, which then releases into a cart or a bucket. You can get 70, 80, 120 pounds of coffee moved without the need to scoop. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, this was the first silo ever installed in a roastery. I know when it was first installed, it did require a little bit of fine tuning and tweaking to make sure that it was dispensing the correct amount. And I will say it's not always 100% accurate. Sometimes there's up to half a pound of difference, but it's usually pretty accurate, especially when you're talking about 120 pounds of coffee. One really cool feature of the silo is that it can dispense pre-roast blends. So you can program blend recipes, the percentage of each coffee you want it to weigh out. Then when you enter the target weight, the silo system will calculate how much of each component to dispense. At Black & White, many of their year-round coffees are pre-roast blends. So now instead of moving the cart around the roastery to find each of the components, the silo makes it super easy. You can keep the cart or bucket in one place, push a few buttons, and the blend is made right for you. Let's talk about what roastery life was like before the Precision Silo. Here at Black & White, they move a lot of green coffee, thousands of pounds every roasting day. And the way Black & White's roastery team operates is there are 3 roasting machines. Here, you can see them, the 15 kilogram, the 35, and the 70 kilogram loring machines. So each person scoops the coffee they need for that machine throughout the day. In the last few months of the time I was working at Black & White, I was on the 70 kilogram machine, which roasts about 120 pounds per batch. On heavy days, I was roasting around 25 batches, which if you do the math, that's 3,000 pounds of green coffee that I was scooping on those heavy days. That is a lot of coffee to move, and I was definitely going home feeling sore and tired and feeling all that weight. During that time, I made videos about ergonomic scoops that I like, ways to scoop efficiently and safely, and I even published an article and made some YouTube videos with a fellow roaster and fitness coach that had exercises for roasters to address this very issue. So clearly it was on my mind. Moving green coffee is really just a labor-intensive process. There's scooping, but there's also hauling green coffee bags off of pallets, and if you're blending, traveling around the roastery to pick up all the components you need for every batch. Luckily, Black & White does have everything laid out pretty nicely, so they keep all the coffee that's being used right in front of the roasters, so it's pretty accessible, but it still leads to inefficiencies. Not to mention the confusion when coffee bags of different lots look the same. So like this coffee bag looks a lot like that coffee bag, looks a lot like this coffee bag. And then there's a time that scooping takes away from actual roasting. When you're scooping, you aren't standing right next to the roaster, so you can't monitor the roast super closely. Of course, over time, I got pretty good at knowing when I could walk away from the roaster, or I would build scooping into my between batch protocol. But for big batches, especially multi-component blends, it can just take a long time to scoop all that coffee. The Precision Silo arrived pretty soon after I left Black & White, but I know the roasters here loved it immediately, even with some of the issues that needed troubleshooting. The ability to push a button rather than to manually scoop every single batch was a game changer for them. One of my coworkers had been experiencing repetitive motion injuries, basically like tennis elbow and wrist pain from repeatedly scooping coffee. And honestly, part of my decision to leave full-time roasting was the toll it was taking on my body. But now the silo alleviates a lot of that heavy lifting, pun intended. Plus, it clears up some extra storage space because this thing can hold 8 pallets worth of coffee, and it keeps everything organized. I have had the opportunity to work with the silo, and it really is a cool machine. It was pretty easy to learn off the bat, and the screen is relatively intuitive, and operation is pretty simple. If we're talking downsides, my biggest complaint is that there isn't an alarm or an indication when the coffee is done conveying and dispensing, so you just have to watch and see when there isn't any coffee left. And the fact that the weight is sometimes a little bit off is a bit of a hassle, but the solution has been to keep bags of coffee that are in the silo over here. So if it's short by half a pound, you can just scoop half a pound from the other bags over here. And really, scooping half a pound is still way better than scooping the entire batch. As far as who this machine is good for, if you're a small roastery, the silo is probably overkill. If you're scooping less than, I'd say, 1,000 pounds a day, manual scooping is still probably fine for you, but make sure that you get a scoop that works for your hand, wrist, elbow, and switch hands while you're scooping. But if you work in a place with multiple machines that are 25, 35, or more kilos, and especially if you're moving more than 2,000 pounds of green coffee a day, the Precision Silo really could alleviate alleviate strain and streamline your roastery's workflow. So of course, like with any machine, the silo isn't going to be for everyone, but for medium to large size roasteries and folks who want to alleviate some of the physical toll of roasting, the silo could be a really great option. So there you have it, a look at the SOVDA Precision Silo. This was my third video looking at the SOVDA equipment that Black and White uses here in their roastery. Make sure to check out the other videos on the color sorter and precision fills. Then make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below what other coffee equipment you want to see on this channel. And as always, happy roasting!